But there's more to it than that. I mean, there's an entire policy pursuit that follows from the global warming, the climate change AGW hysteria that I'm old enough to remember the 1970s when we had the coming ice age, and we seem to have missed that, and now we're coming into global warming. But it always had the same solution, did it not? Which was greater government control over energy production, greater government control over manufacturing.
It's for the energy. That's right. Government control of our lives. It's kind of funny. Time magazine had, and I remember this because it's 1975. On their cover, another ice age is coming, we're all going to die. Then you remember a couple of years ago, the same Time magazine had a picture of the last polar bear standing on the last ice cube, and it said, be worried, be very, very worried, the end is coming, all these things. Now, just in the current edition of Time magazine, they're after the scandal, the ClimateGate scandal, is saying, well, these people have been cooking the science. So they're all coming around now to... But what you're bringing up is the most important single thing, and that is, we won. As I told Barbara Boxer, I won, you lost, it's over, get a life. But they're still going to try. And since they can't do it legislatively, we have a president, Barack Obama, who says, well, you can't do it legislatively, we're going to do it through the executive branch. We're going to have the endangerment finding, and we're going to do the same thing as if you passed the bill. And we're not going to let them do it. First of all, you have to keep in mind the endangerment finding that has come, admittedly, was all based on the flawed science of the IPCC. And don't forget, it was the United Nations. They're the ones who started this whole thing. I will probably believe for the rest of my life that the real motivation on this was that the United Nations, every time they make a decision that is not in the best interest of the United States, they have people like me who say, well, we're going to pass a resolution if you don't change that policy, we're going to withhold some of our funding of the United Nations. And when you do that, that outrages them. I think they have been looking for a global funding mechanism to run the United Nations so that they don't have to be accountable to the United States or any other country. I really believe that's what started this whole thing. And we now see that all of the stuff that they've been saying was based on flawed science. That's why the most outrageous thing is what the Obama administration is doing now, trying to do it through the Environmental Protection Agency, and there are going to be a lot of lawsuits on this thing.
Well, let me ask you about the EPA and the endangerment finding just a little bit more. What power will Congress have to rein that in? Because obviously the executive branch is accountable to the legislative branch, and that includes the EPA. If the EPA goes and decides, well, the heck with what everybody else is saying, we're going to just go ahead and regulate carbon dioxide. What can Congress do to stop that?
Well, what Congress can do is what you're going to witness. We're going to say, all right, you've got $43 million additional money that you are planning, you have in your budget to regulate the CO2. We're the ones, we can stop that.
Right.
We can stop it. We're going to make a big issue out of that because how many of the Democrats now who walked right down that line and said, yes, man-made gases, CO2, anthropogenic gases are causing catastrophic global warming. They've been saying it and saying it and saying it. Now they know that the public knows better, and they know that the ClimateGate has refuted all the science. Now, how are they going to act when they have to vote up or down as to whether or not we're going to fund this action that is all based on flawed science? Let's wait and see. We can do that.
It's the power of the purse strings, and Congress always
That's
says
right.
that.
Well, if you read Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution, it's very clear what we're supposed to be doing. It's time that we do it.
Senator James Inhofe, thanks for taking the time tonight to meet with me, and good luck on the report tomorrow. We're going to be watching it very closely.
I hope so. If it weren't for you guys, and I'm talking about talk radio and bloggers, the truth would never have come out. I was all alone out there, and then the talk radio started coming in, and a lot of them who are on the other side of this issue have done it. So it's been a lonely 10 years for me, but it wouldn't. This final, where we are today, would not have happened if it hadn't been for real people out there in the real world looking at the insane things that are happening in Washington, and they wouldn't have known if it hadn't been for bloggers and talk radio.
I just got one more question for you after that, because you mentioned the British press, and I think the British press has actually done a pretty good job in holding these people accountable, but the American media seems very slow to follow their British brethren.
The reason they have is because they crawled so far out on that limb. And that's where the money is. You stop and think about, I mentioned those articles in 1975 and then again last year on global warming at Time magazine. That was the biggest seller of the year. They're making money on that. Do you remember the Weather Channel? Heidi Cullum, she came out with this thing saying that the American Society of Meteorologists should decertify anyone who doesn't agree with our position on global warming. She's not there anymore. The Discovery Channel, they had the History Channel. And then, of course, MSNBC and all the liberal media. So they've hyped it for so long that it's very difficult for them now to turn around and say we were wrong. They're slow to do that. The Brits seem to respond a little quicker.
You think the American media is going to start picking up on it now?
Oh, I think they have to pick up on it now.
Yeah, I think you're right. Again, thank you very much for taking your time today. And this is fairly late at night, folks, and so I want to thank Senator James Inhofe for sticking around and speaking with us tonight.